call to order February 21st regular meeting of the City Council. And City Manager, will you call roll, please?
Yes. We have a sick deputy and a sick city clerk this evening, so we have no one here. So I'll go in order around. Councilmember Cole?
Present.
Taylor?
Present.
Councilman Stallman?
Here.
Councilman Cernanik?
Present.
You guys are backwards in your name thing. Councilman Valdez?
Present.
Councilman Beckman?
Present.
Mayor Brinkman?
Here.
All present and accounted for.
Okay, will you rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Spin. Okay.
Who's going to help you tonight?
I don't know. Let's see if that happens. It's pretty inconsistent. Okay, are there any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, move to minutes. The minutes from the Littleton City Council meeting of February 7th, our regular session. Do we have any changes to those minutes?
I gave non-substantive ones to the city clerk, but that included the correction of Von Gardner's name, the spelling of that.
Anybody else? Okay.
Yay.
Those are approved. Okay, on to report, City Manager.
So everyone who signed up, remember tomorrow is the CML Legislative Workshop, and I would encourage you to take a look at the agenda and decide when you want to attend. And certainly the afternoon, I think, is probably more substance than the morning from my personal view. But if you can make all of it, that'd be great. And then Councilman Stallman had asked me earlier today about a potential bill. It's House Bill 1239. And it's being brought forward by Barbara Kirkmeyer. And that bill would permit not, the issue here is where you have a contract for service, that the recipients of the contract for service would be allowed to vote on that service provision. And I don't have a copy of the bill, so I don't have a lot of details, but the one sentence that came from CML is that the bill would not permit just those owning property within a special district to vote in its elections, but also those who own property in the, quote, service area of the district. So they're not sure whether that bill is going to move forward at all, and the Special Districts Association allegedly has been distancing themselves from it for probably obvious reasons, not to get into a argument between municipalities. And Jim, I had asked that they bring it up at the policy meeting, which I believe is on Thursday.
Correct.
So
and Barbara Kirkmeyer, I believe, is county commissioner in Weld County. How can she be having...
I'm sorry. She's the one who initiated. I'm not sure. Thanks for the correction. Yeah, she is a Weld County commissioner. She did find a sponsor for House bill, but that's where it's being emanated from. Thanks for the correction. It wasn't.
Okay.
So I had suggested to CML that they should be opposing this because while this was an issue, I guess, several years ago, there was another, I think it came through the House as well, that was specifically brought by a House rep dealing with our contract, and it was several years ago, and it died as well. Jim, you remember? So I wasn't aware of that one, but I would assume that CML would support it as a local control issue on the face of it, and so hope that the policy board will take a position of opposition.
Oppose it as a local control issue.
Yeah, because they shouldn't be stepping on our ability to negotiate contracts and allowing others to vote on what is an action of the elected body.
Right.
So I did. Okay. Thanks for that heads up, and I did ask that it be added to the agenda for the CML policy board for who makes the recommendations to the CML board.
Right. Thanks very much.
You're very welcome. And that's all I have this evening.
City Attorney?
I don't have anything.
Bruce Beckman.
I do. And can we recognize our former council member Trujillo in the audience?
Yes, welcome. Jose.
A couple things. One is the Fine Arts Committee does a lot of work each year putting together a presentation of an artistic display and competition up at the museum, and that has been going on for the last month, and it has resulted in what is now the eye of the camera display at the museum. And I just commend to people to go up and take a look. There were hundreds of submitted photographs. They were judged by Andy Marquez, and ultimately nearly 80 of them are hanging up on the walls, and it is a tremendous display of different kinds of photography. So that'll be there for about a month. I don't have the exact dates, but you can look on the webpage to see. The other thing I want to discuss just briefly is what I think was really a failure of the Reapportionment Commission to take into account the City of Littleton and its residents when they did the apportionment. If you get the Denver Post, you probably saw a lot of discussion over the last several months until finally it was approved. But one of the mandates of that reapportionment, which is required by the census every 10 years, is to take into consideration communities of interest. And I think Littleton, City of Littleton is, for a very long period of time, a community of interest on the southern part of Denver. To that end, Kelly Nardi put together a memo and sent it out that explained how some of that apportionment was done and how it affected the residents. And I want to tell you that in the area of senator representation, we have 3 senators that can represent different parts of Littleton, so you need to look and see which senator represents you. Some of that's understood because we have Douglas County, Jefferson County, and Arapahoe County. But if you look at the representatives, we have 4 representatives representing the City of Littleton now, depending upon where you live. And the one that concerns me the most is that within the City of Littleton, we have 2,300 residents that are for one representative and 3,100 for another representative. Clearly, it's split right through a part of the city. So I wanted to point that out to you. You know, one of those things we should all know as citizens who represents us, and it's a little more difficult now than it was. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Phil?
Yes. We had the opportunity to have an outreach breakfast with South Suburban Park and Rec District as well as Hudson Gardens last Thursday morning. It was a great discussion. Wanted to let you know, as far as South Suburban is concerned, tomorrow is their rescheduled board retreat for those that are taking interest in that. It's from 8 to 4:30 p.m. at the Lone Tree Clubhouse. And that is going to be followed by their regular meeting, which is at 5:30, but that will be at Goodson Center. So there'll be some travel time, and hopefully the traffic will be good for them. One of the things that is on their agenda for tomorrow is a withdrawal of a resolution that they had for the East Side Trail, as that project, as far as a grant request in going forward, is going to be paired with a much larger project that is being taken up by Urban Drainage, and the chairman of that is, of course, Susan Beckman. February is Therapeutic Recreation Month. If you've been getting to know your council members about what you didn't know, you realize that nearly everyone is and has been involved in some level of recreational activity. So please take note. And tomorrow on the South Suburban board, there's also going to be a presentation of a GIS system that is being used. It's also being sponsored by Dr. Cog to look for GIS mapping for not only parks, open space, parcels, et cetera, but also utilities and streets and the likes. And then wanted to reiterate a request that Sue Rosser made at breakfast, and she's a member of the board for South Suburban. There is a GOCO grant that's going forward from the Highline Canal Working Group for the river corridor, and to put your note of support and letter of support. And if you need to find that address, it is on the ssprd.org website. For us, the South Metro Denver Chamber of Commerce, the Legislative Action Committee, considering that we're going to be attending a CML session tomorrow with the legislators, has actually had an extra session over the last couple of weeks with the volume of bills that are coming through that are considering both everything is really designed to have a positive impact on business and employment. It is interesting that at least 4 sets of bills are actually almost diametrically opposed, so it has made for a very interesting set of discussions. And the Economic Development Group met a week ago Friday, and a presentation was made by one of the bills that's proposed to provide an incentive seed fund from the state to support bringing back elements of the film industry here to Colorado. And with that.
Barry?
Thank you, Mayor. At East Elementary, they recently received a grant for their summer school program that will help about 35 students continue their academic studies through the summer. Also at East Elementary, they had recently held their registration for their fall 2012 kindergarten class, and they had just over 50 kids register, which is about the highest number they've had in quite a number of years. And East Elementary, if you remember, kind of went, enrollment-wise, went down for quite a while, and now it appears to be on its way back up.
Good news.
Yeah.
Bruce?
Thank you. Attended the Littleton Public School Board meeting on the 9th of February. The 2 principal items that were discussed were the district's Unified Improvement Plan, which is sort of a methodology they're using in terms of data review, access, and analyzing access to universal curriculum, so forth and so on, of a technical nature. But I think it shows the continuing rigor that the administration and the board are applying to sort of a constant quality improvement process. And then there was a lot of discussion concerning the wellness program in terms of improved food quality for the school breakfast and lunch programs. Let's see. The other, do you want to talk about the playground funding thing with Keith Gardner?
Go ahead.
Okay. The mayor and I had worked previously with one of the Centennial City Council members, a fellow named Keith Gardner, on the Safe Routes to School program. We got pinged on an email this week, and they're looking collectively with LPS, including Centennial and Littleton, to extend funding using some grant money with Tri-County Health and then other community partners to see if there's an opportunity to refurbish additional playgrounds throughout the LPS district. East was done a year or so back. And I think this year they're talking about Runyon, Centennial, and Euclid in Littleton. I know City Manager Penny's looking at some opportunities. I mentioned it with Councilmember Beckman this morning at the Rotary Breakfast, because they had helped fund some of the improvements over at East. So we'll see where that all goes. And then this week's often imitated, never duplicated, always loved and hated merchant plug of the week. Let me stop there for a minute.
Oh.
There's always an instance or two where you just have to bring your A game. And, you know, when a burger and a beer, for example, for dinner is just not going to make it, whether it's your significant other's birthday, anniversary, significant event, say a wedding or graduation, or no reason at all, but sometimes you just have to step your game up. Well, if I may suggest, this week's merchant plug of the week goes to a restaurant where you can do that. You can bring your A game, and you'll be rewarded justly with an outstanding presentation, quality of food, and service. And I'm, of course, speaking about Opus Restaurant on Main Street. Opus combines contemporary decor, old world charm, and cutting-edge award-winning service. Critics' quotes include impeccable service and genius on the plate. Opus is an award-winning restaurant offering an innovative fine dining experience. Let's see here. The address, of course, is 2575 West Main Street. lunch and dinner service. Lunch is 11 to 3 daily. Dinner is 5 to 10 Monday through Saturday, and 5 to 11 Friday and Saturday. And I highly recommend the brunch from 10 to 3 on Sunday if you're so inclined. You can learn more about Opus at www.opusdine.com, and you will not be disappointed. Thanks.
Councilmember Taylor.
I had lunch with the CDOT commissioners in Castle Rock last week, and it was just a get to know you session. Did ask for funding for C-470, though, while we had the opportunity to talk. The city and South Suburban are working, their staffs are working together on a project for planting along the East Side Trail between Santa Fe and the East Side Trail, and that's south of Prince Street. It'll be using the money that I put a request in from in the budget session last year, and that'll be forthcoming when the budget gets figured out. They're still working on what they're going to do and having to mark everything before they can do that. I am on the board of directors of an organization called Protect Our Neighborhoods. And there's a bill in the legislature right now that is expanding slot machines. And the bill right now is very different from the bill that was last year's version. Last year's version would allow it to go into any restaurant in town, any place where there was, it would go into gas stations like 7-Elevens. This time it's very limited. It's limited to 3 places in the state. One can be on the western slope, one is in Pueblo, and the other one is on the eastern slope in any place but Pueblo. And specifically, it was mentioned the Arapahoe County racetrack as being a place where this would go. Now, the bill provides that if there's an impact, that they can charge an impact fee. But the impact fee, if they want to charge it, will go only to the group that had voted to allow it to come. In the case of the racetrack in Arapahoe County, the county commissioners control that area, but it is on the borders of Aurora. It's very difficult for anybody, for most anybody to get to the racetrack without going through the city of Aurora. And there's no funding allowed for that type of impact that they would have, whether it's on their roads, their policing, whatever it happens to be. So this gets around the law that we passed a constitutional amendment a few years ago that said you had to vote on gambling. And they're trying to change that by statute, which we don't believe is legal, but it will be coming up to try to do that. Anyway, that I think will be another thing that we'll talk about probably at the policy committee or certainly at the executive board meeting on Friday.
You should clarify, Councilor, that the Colorado Municipal League's executive board.
Say again?
You were speaking originally from the Safe Cities board. Just to clarify that it's the CML executive board meeting coming up, and I believe CML has a position of oppose on that bill.
They could.
So I'm pretty sure. So
I didn't check the numbers on it. I got this email late this afternoon.
yeah, it's on the list for the policy board, and I'm pretty sure it was oppose. And I think it goes further, actually. It doesn't designate the first 3, but then it sets some criteria for future. I mean,
It does.
It
does
there
allow.
is definitely concern, I think, from local municipalities that this could have negative impact. And it has a arbitrary high, at least initially, arbitrary number of $5 million that you can collect in fees. But until you know what those impacts are, it's, again, state legislatures saying, here's the limitation on how much you can collect. So if you have a $10 million impact because of police or fire or whatever, you can only recover up to $5 million of that. So hopefully it will die in committee.
I just tried to hit the highlights of that. I didn't get into many details, but you're correct. The CML State House report, if all of you guys are not getting that, I'll be glad to forward it to you, because if you look at it, all those things that are in that report, a lot of those things come back to the executive board, and I'll be very glad to take your concerns back to the board. We're meeting monthly during the legislative session right now, so if you're not getting that State House report, I'll be glad to forward it to you if you just let me know.
And we can sign you up, too.
Late today, I did get an email from Bev Bradshaw, who is on the Arapahoe County Open Space Committee, and there was a stakeholder meeting on the 13th of February, and it had to do with the Murray property, the Oxbow property, and the Lee Gulch Overlook. Well, Murray property is in my council district. I surround Oxbow on 3 sides. I talked to Debbie just a little bit ago about Lee Gulch, which is in the middle of her district. We didn't get notified that this meeting is going on at all. And we have, I think, a great deal of, should have some at least input to attend these. So I was very surprised when I got that email from Bev late this evening. There is a public meeting coming up on March the 15th, though, and it is from 6 to 8 p.m. at Carson Nature Center. So that it'll be a public hearing at that time. The email today did have a very lengthy report that came from Hillary Merritt, I think, did the report on the what they talked about at the stakeholder meeting last month or last week. So.
Thanks. Did you have any Dr. Cog report?
I do have Dr. Cog. We took positions on legislative bills, committed funding to support a Tiger grant for the North I-25 managed lanes, had a report on the process to be used for the 208 review for RTD's 2012 plans, which we have to approve their plan, their financial plans, as well as any expansion of their light rail or track system they put in, and we have set aside dates for completing that. Our annual workshop is Friday night and all day Saturday. So that's it.
Thank you. Peggy?
There are a few places, I think, still left on the CERT training, the Community Emergency Response training, and that's the 1st and 2nd and 4th and 5th Saturdays in March. And I didn't say this last time when Councilmember Beckman encouraged some folks to sign up, but I signed up several months ago, and I sure would love to have some company there. But, I mean, there will be people there, I'm sure, that I know, but there are still more slots, and it's a focus in part for some being part of a team, but you don't have to ever be part of a team or volunteer. One of the advantages of taking the training is that you can at least try to learn enough that you won't cause a problem by doing something dangerous yourself if there's an emergency, and that would cause somebody to have to come rescue you because you've complicated matters. But it is an outstanding program, so I hope some of you out in the TV audience and some of you here might also want to do that. So if you're interested, you can contact Mickey Kemp at Bradford Automotive, or if you want to contact me to get information, to email or call Mickey, I'll be glad to give that to people. Then we have on our agenda tonight an item relating to emergency planning. And so I would call to council's attention that what some of the information that's in this, assuming we're going to pass it, would require us to change our legislative procedures and rules, which has some incorrect information in it, referring to city code that's not in city code. So, because it says that, anyway, it has incorrect information in our procedures and rules. So I hope we can tweak that. It's a minor thing, but I think it's important.
Why don't we discuss that when we go to second reading?
Well, it doesn't relate to passing that. This is something that we would need to do otherwise. But if you want, I'll be glad to, I'll raise it again and point that out. then city manager and I have had several email exchanges over the weekend relating to the idea of whether or not we should continue having the council district forums at City Center, or as an idea that was in our packets, go out and have these sessions in the various districts. And so if I understand you, Michael, correctly, you're going to put that on a study session so we can talk about it?
Since you brought it up, we can see if there's interest by the council right now, actually, and see if people want to have that conversation. Absolutely.
So, because I think we need to have some conversation about it. So
is there, so.
Go ahead.
So the conversation started with we hold, as I understand it, 4 district meetings. They're within the districts. It's one of those, the community comes to us. There's 4 of them housed. And as we've been talking about, and I'll relate this back to the comp plan update, as we've been talking about how to do public process differently, how to engage in the community differently, Kelly Nardi, Director of Communications, and I discussed more homegrown, I guess for lack of a better term, ways to interact with the community. And so the suggestion was brought up and we discussed it, and I believe this is how it was done years and years ago, which is it's not district-based, it is neighborhood-based. And we go out and we find a nice park or we use a school where they have a parking lot, whatever it might be, and it is a community appreciation approach where we are there, the council is there, we've got food and, burgers and brats, whatever it is that we have. Might bring a fire truck so that we can encourage families to come. It's around the dinner hour, but it's really a celebration of Littleton and appreciating why we're here, have an opportunity for neighbors to come out and see each other. It's not about the government, in essence, being in the forefront. We're not standing out there with a microphone and saying, here's what we're doing and blah, blah, blah. It's really, we're there if anyone happens to have any questions, police cars, big loader that the kids can climb on, drive, whatever they want to do. And so it was a real shift of basically saying we're not having this being district-based anymore. We're going to try something different. And have it be really community-based and an opportunity. We are using public dollars to have an opportunity for them to get out and enjoy Littleton and a way to bring them together. So that was the suggested, and that was in your memo, that was in your packet, I believe, last council meeting. And then Councilmember Cole asked several questions, and she said, as she stated, and so if there's a desire, we can certainly have further discussion at a future study session.
I would suggest that if we do want to have further discussion on this, if we want to move it to the general business section, I don't know that it holds the value of moving it into a full study session. I think we have a lot of policy issues that could probably we could spend our time better on there. If I can get kind of just a rundown from council as to whether or not they'd like to see us move this to general business, or if you feel as though staff has put together a plan and we'll watch that kind of unfold as it happens. Bruce?
Thank you. I'm real familiar with the way we used to do it because I was part of the planning for that, and I worked with Kelly and others in the city. I remember we did Heritage High School was one location, Berry Park was another one. We used the parking lot at St. Mary's and some other places around town, and they were very successful. I thought the turnout and the interest and the cross-section of people that showed up was really exceptional. Now, it depended on the weather, and we did it during the good weather times. It was totally an outside event. But I like the idea of taking a look at this again. I think flexibility matters, and if we find that today's world isn't interested in it, then we can change again. But I know in the past there was a high interest in it, and I would like to continue encouraging staff with that idea.
Thank you. Phil?
Certainly, if you're looking for people to participate, it's easier when you make the distance that they might need to travel shorter. So there's a lot that's positive on that. Earlier, we were having some discussion of fiscal notes related to some items, and that's the item that's a little bit unknown, is what's the cost going to be and where does that come from. And so there's an outstanding item on that front. And the memo talks about integrating some of the comp plan review and discussion with this, and not seeing a full plan yet. I know we talked about that at our full-day study session about the comp plan and going out into the community for that. I'm not sure I would include that in the bite that we're trying to take until we really understand how we're going to do that, because that is a very important item to me as well. So that would be my thoughts. But getting out to where the people are, that's a good thing.
Madam Mayor, a point of order. Didn't you just ask the question to move this to general discussion tonight instead of having the discussion now?
Well, yes, I would like to know, I guess, so far we've got two council members that are okay with letting staff go ahead as opposed to moving it to general, and they're making some additional comments. So,
I have questions during the whole thing.
okay, are you ready to make a decision?
No.
Okay, then you'd rather go to general?
You bet.
Okay, I'm ready to make a decision. Are you ready to?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Tim, are you ready?
I'd go to general discussion.
Okay, Peggy?
General discussion?
Okay, so we have, what are you?
I was comfortable with it, sort of
As
in
is?
concept, yeah.
I'm comfortable with it.
And the reason I like more, because Kelly does point out that it is staff intensive, and I don't know what the cost is to do this, and I'd like to know,
I think
I
this
can
is
answer.
the beginning of an idea of a shift in what we have done, and I think staff has a lot of work to do, figuring out costs and some of the details and the particulars, which I'm assuming what we need to know, we're going to find out
Yeah, we have many months to
work on it.
before, because we're going to do it during the good weather months.
I just hesitate for us to get into the details of this right now, in that it's a dynamic idea that's being fleshed out, and I think it's kind of a heads up to us to say we're shifting an old pattern and trying something new. So if we have, right now we've got 4. Jerry, are you ready? Do you want to?
So I have a point of order. In terms of our legislative rules, I thought we were wanting to publish so citizens would know what would be on an agenda. They theoretically could come and speak to something. So I raised the issue because Michael had told me in email that he would put this on a study session. I did not bring with me tonight, I was not prepared to present a case tonight, although I have a case for why I think we should do something different. I'm totally able to I can accept if the rest of council majority doesn't agree with my thoughts, but I do not think it's appropriate to citizens or to council to have this kind of discussion off the cuff. So,
Well, Peggy,
and it is.
there wasn't planned to be brought up. You did bring it up. You asked us to move it to study session, and I think if we have a consensus from council to move it to study session, then
No,
that's what we'll do. But we're
I
finding.
was saying that the city manager told me he would put it on a study session. I was not asking to do that. He said he would. Otherwise, I would be requesting that. So mine was not asking to do that. It was a public information item.
Okay, at this point, we have the support from enough support from council to just go ahead and move forward
And we'll
with
keep you in the
planning.
loop, and Peggy, you and I can chat about your whatever concerns that you have, I think.
Well, my larger concerns I won't even get a chance to speak to because we haven't really, we aren't giving an opportunity for that. So.
All right. I can tell you
And
that-
I respected the request not to send all of my comments that you and I had to the rest of council. So the reasons that I might share, and maybe reasons that citizens might share, they might all say, yay, this is great. but there's no opportunity for that dialogue, so.
Okay, Peggy, did you have anything else on your report?
Pardon, on my report, half a second. Okay.
Okay.
I have a clarification. So what did the council just agree to then?
We agreed to not move it to general business to discuss it this evening. And we've agreed that staff can proceed with the planning on this and putting together more of the information and keeping us informed.
So
I mean,
again, this wasn't on the agenda, but we just took a vote.
Well,
It was
we kind of
head
took
nod.
a head nod, straw, I mean,
I mean, Peggy makes a good point. I mean, whether we want to agree with this or, because I do think it's a great idea, but it does seem like we're a little out of order here.
okay, I make a motion that we move it to the general business, and we'll take an official vote on it. Need a second?
Second.
Okay. Everybody ready to vote?
The
Okay.
motion passes.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, do we have any guest citizens this evening? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who would like to come down and address council this evening on any issue that is not on the agenda for a second reading, which we will hold public hearings on individually? Dale?
Thank you. I'm Dale Shields, and I'm in District 2. Come here tonight, I want to thank whoever it was that was responsible for directing the snow plowing on the residential streets during the last storm. This is the kind of variance to longstanding policy that shows me, at least, that there's some people here who have an understanding of what can be done to meet unique requirements. The single pass on the streets allowed people to get around with a minimum of difficulty, and it also allowed streets to melt a lot quicker rather than ending up with 4 or 5 inches of ice on all those streets that didn't get plowed. And the effort by the street department, really appreciate it because it just helped us marvelously. I would encourage this group to consider making that variance a norm whenever there is some large snowstorm expected. I would leave it to you to decide, when they say it's going to be 20 inches, when they say it's going to be 12 inches. I don't know exactly what the size is, but there is a size, obviously, that that one pass makes all the difference in the world in the city. When you look to make potential problems smaller, it's an outstanding example of acting on just simple common sense. And I hope we can see a lot more of that. I want to thank you again.
Thank you, Dale. Anyone else? Jose?
Good evening, Council. My name is Joseph Trujillo. Jose, that's how a lot of folks know me, 5574 South Huron Street, and also at 2420 West Main Street, Jose's Restaurant. I come before you this evening because I have a great concern about the city right-of-way in downtown Littleton. And what is happening is we are having fences put up in downtown Littleton, and the one right next to me at Old Town has been put up, and it extends 6 foot out from the building on both sides of the door. At that point, we have a 14-foot sidewalk, which was built for our pedestrian-oriented citizens. We also have in front of that, to the north, partly underneath, on the one to the west side, there's a grate, a steel grate with a big tree right in the middle of it. Now you take the 6 feet and the 3 foot, and that's giving you exactly about 5 foot for our pedestrians. I have had the other night, it was up supposedly for inspection when this big snow hit, and I had 2 people came in and said they ran right into this thing. They didn't see it. And I know it's black, but it seems to me like it's just as something that is not suitable for Main Street. We've always held true to pedestrian-oriented pedestrian walkways, but now all of a sudden we're getting things put in it. I've also been told that within this little fence on each side that the bar can acquire a liquor license and serve booze outside on the sidewalk, and that they probably can smoke there. Now, the state laws say you got to be 15 feet from your door, so I don't know who's wagging whose tail here. But anyway, my question is that I would like to know by whose authority was the sidewalk sold or given away. I don't think I ever dealt with something like this where council would say we're giving away half of our sidewalk to a business. Do you know? Has anybody come before council?
They didn't come before council, but Joe, when you were on council, we did the same thing for the tavern.
I didn't realize that the tavern had put in that that little part that they did in front, because it was the last thing that they done, to fix up that front of their building. But they do not have these. My take on the historic preservation in putting these up, and across the street we had Abe's Cafe that had the little plastic ones that they could move in and out. Each day they had to be moved. But this one is pretty good, pretty staunch thing there, and it's anchored into the concrete, which bothers me. It's not going to be moved. No. So in the winter, it's supposed to be moved for snow removal and then put back out in the summer. But it seems to me like it's just taking up too much of our pedestrian-oriented walkway.
Jose?
Yes.
What I would suggest is that we pass these comments on to community development and code and get some answers for you, and then we can get back in touch with you on those answers. Because I know we do have to keep a 5-foot sidewalk, so I don't know where that breaks that 5-foot sidewalk up or where their property extends to. So I think those are good questions, and it's probably worth taking a look at.
Okay.
I will be happy to get
do
back
that.
to
I'd just like to know why this is being done with these fences being anchored down right in the middle. So,
Okay.
if you can tell me that sometime, I'd like to know. I'll buy them in front of mine, and I'll do what I want with it, if that's what the case is. Thank you.
Thanks, Jose. We will get back with you pronto. Anybody else? Paul?
Evening, Mayor and council members. Paul Bingham, 236 West Delaware Circle. I second everything Jose has just told you. There's something haywire when there's a great big fence across half the city's sidewalk. I enjoyed for many years sitting out in front of Abe's, and like Jose just said, that was temporary. It was not a problem. This thing's, I've looked, it's bolted to the cement. I have some pictures in my camera right now that I was fixing to send to Jim to ask this very same question if anyone would like to see the pictures of this situation. It is really a hazard. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none. We have nothing on consent agenda, so we'll move to our second and final reading on ordinances and public hearings. Our first is an ordinance on second reading revising and repealing portions of Title I, Chapter 5 of the City Code. City Attorney.
An ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, revising and repealing portions of Title I, Chapter 5 pertaining to administrative departments under the city manager.
This ordinance, the ordinance revising and repealing portions of Title I, Chapter 5 of the City Code was approved on first reading. Staff received no public comments on this ordinance between first and second readings. Repealing these provisions would allow the city manager to structure the organization in a way to best meet the needs of the city and is in conformity with the city charter requirement that only police and fire be established by ordinance. Staff, do you have any presentation?
Nope, I think you
Council?
summarized it very well.
Okay. Council, are there any questions? Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing, and I don't have a roster, but I'm assuming no one signed up. If anyone in the audience would like to speak now, come on down. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing, and I need a motion.
I move that the public hearing be closed and that the ordinance revising and repealing portions of Title I, Chapter 5 be approved on second reading.
Any discussion? Oh, wait, I need a second. Sorry, we have a second. Jerry. And Council, any discussion? Ready to vote?
Councilman Taylor, did you?
Sorry.
Passes unanimously.
After you look.
I just moved it from one to the other.
Thank you.
There you go.
No, he finally was covering.
I had her back.
Okay, 8B, an ordinance, go ahead, City Attorney.
An ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, amending the City Code, Section 1-6-9, pertaining to the municipal court administrator.
The ordinance revising Section 1-6-9 of the City Code pertaining to the municipal court administrator was approved on first reading. Staff received no public comment on this ordinance between first and second. And the city manager, per the city charter, Article 7, is the head of the administrative branch of the city and has the power to establish administrative regulations and department goals and policies. Amendments to this provision of the code will allow the manager to organize the departments to better meet the needs of the city. Anything from staff on that?
Again,
Okay.
well summarized.
Any questions from council? All right, I'll open the public hearing. Again, if anybody would like to come down and speak, please do so now.
And Mayor, nobody signed up for any of the.
Okay, thank you.
I move that the public
Seeing none.
hearing be closed and that we approve the ordinance on second reading revising Section 1-6-9 of the City Code pertaining to the municipal court administrator.
Council, any discussion?
Need a second?
Oh, I keep jumping ahead of it. Hurry up. Okay. Any discussion? Okay, ready to vote? City manager?
I'm sorry. Councilman, unanimous.
Okay. Okay, item 8C.
This is an ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, repealing Section 1-6-20 of the City Code pertaining to the municipal court referee.
The ordinance repealing Section 1-6-20 of the City Code was approved on first reading. Staff received no public comments on this ordinance between first and second. And as presented and discussed on first reading, this provision of the City Code creating a municipal court referee delegated the authority of the prosecutor to the court administrator for parking tickets. Parking tickets should be handled in a similar manner to other non-criminal infractions. It's necessary to repeal this ordinance for that to occur. Council, any questions? Okay, I'll open the public hearing. If anybody wants to make any comments regarding this, please come down. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing, and I need a motion.
I move that the public hearing be closed and that the ordinance repealing Section 1-6-20 of the City Code entitled Municipal Court Referee be approved on second reading.
Need a second?
Second.
Okay, council, any discussion? Ready to vote?
The motion passes unanimously.
Item 8D.
This is an ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, repealing Title II, Chapter 1, pertaining to an emergency planning department.
Okay, on first reading, council requested information on laws governing declaration of an emergency, and under Colorado Revised Statute, subsection 24-32-2109, paren 1, the principal executive officer of the city, in the case of Littleton, that's the city manager, declares an emergency. The response and recovery aspects of the city are overseen by the city manager. The city has a current plan that the manager is in the process of reviewing and improving. Staff received no public comment on this ordinance between first and second. And as discussed on first reading, the only departments that are required to be established by ordinance are police and fire, sections, based on Article 9, Section 104. Any questions from council?
Mayor, I do have a comment on this one. I apologize.
Staff.
I just give council a heads up that amended plan should come forward April-May timeframe. The current plan requires council approval of changes, and so you will see that within the next couple months, but it's in process of being revised.
The question that comes up on this, because I was asked at a public gathering by a citizen, who is the person on whatever interim basis we may have who will actually provide that declaration? Who's the authority that will provide that declaration on the interim, and where is that outlined?
That, I believe, and
I think it's still the city manager.
Okay.
So.
And that's in our current disaster
Yes.
plan. And that was my answer, is what I believed, so I feel good.
You're right.
If I could make a comment, thank you. You know, I really feel near and dear to this issue. I feel comfortable that what we're doing is the right thing to take this out of the context that it was. And it is very important that the administrative and staff work in emergency planning still gets done, and I know the city manager has a system to address that. Just recently in the paper, for instance, the Urban Area Security Initiative Group received another grant for millions and millions of dollars, and the person that's involved in emergency planning needs to be involved with UASI as that is done. So there is staff work and opportunity in the Denver area ongoing.
And as the councilman's aware, a lot of FEMA grants and federal grants require this. And so one of our incentives to have it updated and current is to be able to receive those grants. So we're not taking it lightly.
Bruce?
Is there some sort of a organizational chain in the description of the plan that you guys are working or have? In the event the city manager is unavailable or incapacitated, how far down, then what?
Yeah, and I can't tell you the details of it. I'm not privy to it now. I saw the booklet, but it wasn't released to me yet because they're still trying to make sure they're in compliance with a lot of FEMA. But the main City of Littleton plan is a relatively small section of it, and then what FEMA has done over the years is created a lot of subsection of annexes, which are essentially the different types of events that may occur and how they get addressed.
Okay.
And so there is probably more detail than you really care to acknowledge in some of these. But rest assured, the feds have spent a lot of time thinking about that, and that all flows down into our plan as well.
Gotcha. Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so the last piece of what you just said, so indeed, if you were incapacitated, or heaven help us worse, is there somebody designated?
Yes.
Is there a chain designated on staff?
Yes.
And are we going to find out ourselves, that chain?
When we bring the plan, we'll bring it up to you. I mean, it's essentially the deputy city manager. I mean, it follows the normal chain of command, and then you get law enforcement and fire and all of that. So
But we don't have a deputy city manager.
you don't currently have a spot. Rest assured, the chain of command will be addressed.
Okay. Okay. So then in terms
This level of detail is, with all respect, is
No,
something
that's
that
okay.
FEMA is requiring. This is not, they want to know if the mayor's not available, who's the person. If the manager's not available, these guys, they cross their I's and dot their I's, whichever.
Then I'm assuming, since I was asked to defer my earlier comments about this to now, I'll at least have an aside here that our our legislative rules do need to get modified. Section 2C, Roman numeral 2C, currently says emergency meetings in the event an emergency has been declared by city manager or city council pursuant to city code. There is indeed, as far as I could find, nothing in city code that says the council can declare an emergency, although there might be there and I couldn't find it. So we need to modify that portion. It's not like critical tomorrow, but I just like us to be in line.
Perfect.
So.
And just
Bill?
my comment, I'm sorry. We do have an emergency response plan. I mean, there is a book that exists out there, so it's not like we're going, I'll use the term of art, naked in the time frame. And it does have a succession that is included in that. I'm taking it that the review that we're going through is to make sure we're in conformance with FEMA requirements.
Correct. The current plan is from 2005. So a lot has changed. And so it's going from probably a 1/4-inch book to a 3/4-inch book. But yes, as the councilman mentioned, we do have an approved, council-approved emergency response system, or plan, rather.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, open the public hearing. If anybody wants to come down and make a comment regarding this ordinance, do so now. Seeing no one, I will close
I move
the
that
public hearing, and I need a motion.
I move that the public hearing be closed and that the ordinance repealing Title II, Chapter 1 be approved on second reading.
I'll second that.
Okay. Council, any discussion? Ready to vote?
Motion passes unanimously. Speak.
Okay, item 8E.
An ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, repealing Section 1-4-5 of the Littleton City Code relating to liability of officers.
The ordinance repealing Section 1-4-5 of the City Code was approved on first reading. Staff received no public comments on this ordinance between first and second. As we presented and discussed on first reading, the liability of officers of the City of Littleton is governed by state and federal law. This provision of the City Code could be interrupted as waiving governmental and qualified immunity defenses, thereby exposing officers and the city to liability and damages. Staff, any comments?
That covers it.
Okay. Council, any questions? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. If anybody would like to come down and speak on this issue, please do so now. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
I move that the public hearing be closed and that the ordinance repealing Section 1-4-5 of the City Code be approved on second reading.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Council, any discussion? Ready to vote?
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. So now we're on to general business. The issue on general business is about the change in programming from district council meetings that are held here in the chamber to going out to the community. Peggy, do you want to discuss your concerns?
And I will tell you today, they're replacing the flat roof on part of my house, so my brain is a little bit thumpy from all the noise of that, so forgive me if I don't remember everything that I have written down at home, because I wasn't expecting this tonight. I have concerns, several concerns. One is when the citizens really would have a chance for a forum meeting, the way we have done, giving them a chance to come, ask questions, have dialogue with council at the district level, and having those meetings televised so that the people in the district, as well as the rest of the city, would be privy to all of that. I think we lose something by not giving the citizens that kind of opportunity in a district level public forum. Second is the issue of cost, and that was one of the questions that I had emailed City Manager Penny. What would be the cost of having these 4 outreach celebrations? And would it not be much more cost-effective to do this kind of outreach by investing that money in the National Night Out gets-togethers, of which there would be, I think, last year there were 24 of those. The year before there were even more, I believe. Maybe, I forget how many the year before. But a lot of people show up for those. They look forward, more show up when the police and fire folks show up, but last year they didn't because the funds had been cut back, so the police were not really participating, police and fire were not participating in that. And so I think that's a great way to try to achieve some of the same thing, at the same time encouraging people to participate in the National Night Out events where they get to meet their neighbors, which is, of course, a huge reason for having National Night Out. The proposed change would not have any televising of anything, and the cost of it, I question also in terms of what we might sacrifice otherwise for the money we're spending there. We already had someone who's now left tonight, but Mr. Shields, who's encouraging us to plow when we have some of the deeper snows. Funds are, we have money, but we always would like to have more money to do more things. So I'm not personally seeing the value of what I anticipate the cost to be for these community celebrations, as much as I like the idea of encouraging get-togethers.
Does anybody have any comments? Jerry?
Okay. Thank you, Peggy. So the average turnout for these events out in the field have been 60 to 80 folks. Is that right, Kelly? The average turnout for these have been about 60 to 80.
The ones held here? The ones in here?
That's the events that are held in this forum have about 60 to 80 citizens. Is that correct? And that's an estimate, I know.
Yes, I think that's correct. I usually sit up there and count the people who aren't staff.
And then in the past, when they've done the events in the field, what would you say attendance may be?
We get a lot of people. You know, if the weather was nice, if you think about somebody coming home from work with a few kids in the house, they're not going to bring them down to an event in the council chamber. But if you can take them over there and they can get a slice of pizza.
So the number, your estimated number would be?
150, 200, maybe more. I remember when we had at Euclid that was really big.
Then you said it was also labor intensive. How many man hours total do you think it took to beginning to end?
Well, I think primarily the impact will be on Charlie's staff too. We own the tent, we own the tables, we own the chairs. I don't know. He could probably answer that better.
All right. Yeah, I'd like to know that.
How much time it takes the crew to go out and set up the tent.
Yeah,
and tear it down.
let me interject here. So I think the budget, from my perspective in this, is not a substantive impact to the overall budget. We have a $48 million general fund budget. We're talking, maybe $6,000 to $8,000 in outlay for food, and staffing issues are a management responsibility that we would address. My question, and the reason that we brought this up is, I think Councilman Cole asks at the core of the question is, it's a shift. It's, do you want, from a policy standpoint, we put on something that's here. We say, here we are, come to us, we will answer questions if you have them, and you get X number of people. Of the 60 to 80, how many are the regular folks? You got to decide. But from a policy level, and what we're suggesting is that there's probably a better way to engage with the community, and engaging not just around the government, but getting them to engage with each other and talk about whatever their issues are, and you are there so they can answer any questions. And so I'm asking you really from a policy level, which one do you want? We're not going to come back and ask for an additional appropriation in either circumstance for this, because the dollars are not substantial enough for a trade-off. Councilman Cole's question about plowing and other things, those will be policy questions as we get into the 2013 budget, but you're dealing with tens of thousands or or hundreds of thousands, depending upon what the issue is, as opposed to here, we're essentially saying, I mean, the reason, I'm not 100% sure why we're fully talking about it, but ultimately I think it's, do you want to shift that approach that we have? Because, as I said, we're not going to come back and ask for additional funds to do this.
I understand. But I guess back to my question again. So by the time you add labor onto it, it's about a $10,000 4 times a year, so $40,000 to $50,000,
Yeah.
And that to me is taxpayers' money. So while
No,
it may not be
that's total.
Don't times it.
Don't times it, that's total.
times 10 or times 4, I'm sorry, is about a 50
No. I'm saying probably $8,000 total
for all 4.
for all 4 of them.
Okay, that's very different.
Yeah, exactly. That's why, if it were $40,000 or $50,000, I would need to come back for an additional appropriation. What I'm saying is we can absorb this within the appropriated funds that council authorized for 2012.
I guess my thought is, looking at something like this, I still like to have a dollar attached to things, or at least an estimate, so that I can feel more comfortable, because it is still the citizens' money.
Absolutely, and I would argue that what better way to spend it than to create an environment where they can come out
and I'm not disagreeing
do
with
it.
that, but without knowing what a cost is.
Yeah, and we ultimately won't know until we have the people there. And I think if you assume that, overall, if each one is $2,500 and we're talking about $10,000 total, that's probably a safe place. The bulk of the cost is going to be in food and lemonade if we're going to do this in an environment where we get people to come out and enjoy and have you guys cook burgers for them and brats or hot dogs or
burgers,
whatever.
you're going to need a lot more burgers to.
You'll be on cleanup.
So part of this for me really is and I don't mean this to, yes, it's public funds, but the magnitude of these dollars, does it accomplish what you see as valuable? Getting out into the community, having an opportunity for the public to interact with you, with the staff to ask. They can still ask questions because we'll be there, and we are fine-tuning this. And if real quick on Councilman Cernanic's question or comment around the comp plan, one of the ideas on the comp plan, and I think our community development director spoke to this, is if we get a camera out there and we do, what do you love about Littleton? And we take the opportunity when they're in this environment and they're walking around to videotape them and start to hear what they say. They're passionate about whatever it is, and then we can put that together ultimately in a collage type thing and use it for future meetings that we have, glean from that some of those themes that we hear from folks. And so we would use it for a good purpose beyond just the community piece of it. But it's just trying to think differently about how we
I think that's great. Again, but my only thought is when things like this come to me, whether it's here or during my day job, I like to see a number.
I understand.
I mean, it's great to have a warm and fuzzy, but if it did come back at 10,000 an event, then that would be a different story.
Yep.
But I
it
don't
will
know
not.
by looking at this, so you've clarified that. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Bruce.
Yeah, I think Michael certainly made a number of comments I was going to chime in with, but I like it's another way to connect with the community, and it's a fresh way to do it. And I think to the extent that we've got pictures or video and we upload them on the web and we tell people, hey, come, check out the website as part of the website redevelopment program. It's a teaser for that. You can see yourself on the city website kind of deal, maybe. And this kind of thing, keeping that engagement fresh is very valuable, and I think it's money well spent. And I appreciate Jerry's comment, absolutely. I do think the overall responsibility that staff has is to meet the budget as allocated. Certainly, over the last few years, you guys have Staff broadly has come in under budget on expenses, and this year we look over budget on revenue, so that's a great outcome. Yeah, but as you indicated, there's not going to be any incremental appropriation, so the obligation to meet the budget remains.
Yes.
So, in total.
Jim? Well, for a number of years, we did community forums out in the community and neighborhoods. And then we moved it into this room for the citizen forums. Did 4 of them a year. The at-large people have no opportunity to really make a presentation under the citizens forums. Whereas if you're out in the community, all 7 of us have an opportunity to talk to people. And I do agree that we had a lot more people when we were out in the community than when we were in here. Particularly we get families, and you don't get families very often coming to the forums. I did think, though, that Peggy gave me a thought that maybe Michael and Kelly could get together and look at, is there a time sometime that we could do a single citizens forum here that the whole city is invited to instead of each district is invited to. And it would be put out in part of the same invite that you're going to do for all the rest of this. Absolutely. And then I think that the community development staff having the opportunity to talk to citizens about what they want to do in the comp plan is a very positive thing. And maybe we will get citizens all over the city coming forth to talk about what they think would be in the comp plan before they start going to individual subsections of that plan.
Yep, we can do that.
Bruce?
2 points come to my mind. One is there is a value with the way that they're being done now and televised, in that those citizens that want to keep up with what the newest and what the progress is on different plans get a chance to hear about them, because that's what the purpose of the presentation was. Each department would talk about what was brewing, what was going on, what was planned. So maybe there's another format, another way that you could do that and put it on the web page and have it accessible all the time. That would meet the same need that was being met by those other 4 meetings. But I do want to say that I think engaging the neighborhoods is critical to the future of Littleton being the community of choice for people to move into and feel a part of. And I think this is just one more step to get back to doing that. The original intent, if I recall, and Jim was on council probably at the time, I think council had a very specific direction that they were trying to become neighborhood focused at that time, and that was why that they made that move. I think it's probably a good move to make again.
Okay.
Anybody else? Phil?
Just real quick, what I had mentioned earlier when we weren't having the discussion. One of our values is certainly in the neighborhoods of Littleton, and what this does is it puts us out much closer to the neighborhoods. I know that the at-large members haven't had the opportunity to have like district meetings, although they've been invited to such. I think this allows for all of us to actually be present across the city in a different way. And when I say all of us, I'm including not just the council but the staff, and to underline some of the key value that has brought a lot of people to Littleton is the value of our neighborhoods. I think, or at least my response to Michael's memorandum is trial balloon, somewhat half-baked. Not necessarily half-baked in the sense of crazy, but not necessarily with all of the details attached to it. Along with Jerry, I'd like to see probably kind of a statement that, it's within the budget, kind of a commitment, but also how we might take a look at evaluating some of this and to say, hey, it is achieving what we're seeing as kind of those glow items, to say, here's some of the things we'd be looking for, and not sure whether you floated this by staff, but you also need to get staff engaged, and how is that going to occur? Are we going to have booths for folks, or things like that, and how does this integrate with some of what we're trying to do with the comp plan would be the level of details I'd like to kind of see coming back. You're getting the informal thumbs up to make it a formal thumbs up.
Yep. And we certainly will. I mean, you guys we're learning enough about each other that we're going to try a lot of different things, new sets of eyes looking at it, new ways of thinking about it. And so some of those ideas we're going to try, and some will be incredibly successful, and some may need a little tweaking after the fact. But Councilman Cernanek, your question about kind of that feedback loop and did we accomplish what we set out to is absolutely that debrief will be occurring at the staff level. So because if the first one is semi-successful, we have 3 more that will be pending, and 4 if we add the one in here, and we'll want to make sure that we tweak them, that next one, so that we ensure that they are as successful as they can be. And so you can rest assured that we'll have that constant continuous improvement focus and what worked, what didn't, how can we better ourselves and do that better. And so hopefully you will see a lot of half-baked things, because it means that we're challenging ourselves, we're taking risk, and we're doing things differently than it's been done before. So, and again, we'll trip and stumble and hopefully not fall very often, but it's all well-intentioned and trying to do things better in the future. But thanks for your comments.
Thank you, Michael. Peggy?
Yeah, so a couple questions and a comment. The cost that you estimate, does that include overtime for police and fire?
It does not.
So do we going to get an estimate of that? Because 4 times that number.
It'll be able to handle it within the appropriated budget. And yes, we can do a debrief afterward and let you know what it actually costs on the first one and what we're going to change for the second one and the third one and the fourth one and all of that.
Okay, and I'm assuming this year we have some money in part because of some positions that either were cut or are not staffed right now?
Well, aside from the fact that it's administratively managed and my legal responsibility as your manager is to come in under the appropriated budget and use the monies in accordance with what you appropriated them for, the overtime component is an area where it's budgeted in police and fire in particular and estimated the number of calls and overtime and activities. And so it's really going to be up to myself working with the fire chief and police chief to ensure that we do not go over that overtime budget as we move into different seasons, et cetera, and all of that. So it's a variety of things that will allow us to absorb this. And a lot of it is just good time management and ensuring that we are efficient in who does the initial work to set it up, who we bring to the actual event itself, those types of activities. So. And
what, if any, is going to be our commitment to National Night Out?
I apologize. I meant to mention that earlier. So the other questions, and I did not bring my portion of the email as well, so I'm running by memory a little bit here. But Councilman Cole had asked about several of the other police events that had been cut from the budget. And so I had challenged our police chief to look at those and figure out whether there was a way we could either reinstitute them or do them in a different way. And the only one that I actually don't have an answer for you on right now is National Night Out, because there's some question about what it's actually cost us in the past, what was in the 2011 budget, for us to really understand what the cost is. But generally, what she's looking at doing right now is bringing back, or not bringing back, for an additional citizen academy, she's looking at doing a refresher course with the alumni and having it be essentially a 4-week thing, very much a drop-in, and it's in service of trying to build the volunteerism. And she's working with the city attorney on a few volunteer areas that hopefully we will get the thumbs up from, but really to re-engage or engage the alumni and find places where we can utilize them, where law enforcement could use that assistance. In the junior academy, one of the things she's looking at, and this is on the heels of the Northeast neighborhood conversation, is according to her, we haven't had kids who have participated from that neighborhood. You've got to, we've done it at ACC, there's been additional costs there, so she's looking at doing something that's less expensive, a little bit more condensed in there, and having it focused on the Northeast neighborhood and working with I believe, Mission Hills Church as one of the folks who have said that they wanted to participate, to see if we can get some donations from them for it and different things. And so she's, I think, really working creatively to say, can we reinstate some of these things? Keep those costs low for the participants, get some of the partners who have come forward and say that they have some interest in that. And National Night Out is one, Peggy, that I think she wants to reinstate within the existing budget, and she's going to work with the alumni to see if the alumni can do a lot of the work. She felt like the numbers she had given me, I think there were 46 or 48.
Chief,
I'm sorry, Chief.
Yeah,
yes, yes. Yep. Chief Coogan had given 2 years ago when it was in the budget, it was 46 or 48 of the HOA meetings that had occurred, and it dropped down to 19. But part of that, at least from her view, Chief Coogan's view, was that it was a 3-week window to bring it forward. And so her intent right now is to start working with the alumni and actually use this Refresher Academy as the place to start talking to them, see if they want to take that on. And she thinks with the volunteer work, we can probably reinstate it. It may not be back to full, but do something substantive using the volunteers that we have. And again, other donations that we have from our partners. So again, thinking creatively and how to do things differently, but reinstate it. And so when we finally get those numbers, we'll bring that one back to you, because that could be one that we do need an additional appropriation in order to do it. But our hope is that we can reinstate it without an additional appropriation as well.
Then one final comment. I appreciate that our numbers attending the public forums here have not been overwhelming, although they're always better than most of our regular meetings. But a lot of people, when I was going door to door last fall, a lot of people told me they watch all the meetings. I mean, it amazed me how many people have told me they watch meetings, either live or after the fact. So we can't exactly compare how many show up here with how many actually are getting exposure to the to council. So anyway, thank
Kelly,
you.
we don't make the Nelson ratings? We don't?
Nielsen.
Nielsen? No?
We have too high ratings.
So
Any more?
I would just summarize and say, I think, so what we'll do is we'll add a community, a single community update in the chambers here. And then I think to Councilman Beckman's comment, one of the things we can do is do some departmental updates that are just interviews with our department heads, you know, the top 10 frequently asked questions type of thing. I'm sure Kelly Nardi can come up with you know, a good way to address some of the emails that we get and what those questions are, and then those can just go on a loop, and we can inform it, and again, put those on the website. These are the kind of things that we discuss at the staff level of really how can we get that same information out in a different way. You know, Comcast has a level of insertion into the community. Others use the internet. You know, some tweet, some Facebook, and if we use all of the different modes of communication and get that same message out on all those different venues or forums, I think that ultimately serves us the best. It's not just an interaction, that single interaction recorded. I think there's other ways to look at that, and that's what we're doing.
Bruce.
It's probably worth mentioning something you and I shared. The percentage of the Littleton population that actually gets Comcast into their homes is somewhere in the neighborhood of 40%.
That's correct. It's, yeah, Comcast penetration on average is just around 40%. And when I met with Comcast a couple months ago, I asked them, and they said Littleton is within that average. So it's roughly 40%. So 4 out of 10 have Comcast, and then some portion of those watch. Obviously, it's available. I don't know what number have internet access. But that, again, is exactly why we want to make sure we're not just relying on the televised, but we're really thinking about how different people receive that information, especially as more and more people walk around with their television in their hands, if you will.
On that whole issue, while I appreciate the efforts we've made to broadcast as much as we do, and we are broadcasting substantially more than we broadcast even 4 or 5 years ago. I do think that there is a huge benefit to packing up our little briefcases and marching out into the community and going out there on a weekend when people aren't working and they don't have to rush home at night and feed the family and get the kids to bed and then get themselves to bed because they've got to get to work the next day, and they have a nice casual day to come out. And we're casual, and we're not wearing our fancy clothes, and they're not coming down into this intimidating room and getting in their car and driving to us. And we're going out into the neighborhood, and I like the fact that they are going to have an opportunity to talk to most of us, anybody that comes. All the council will be there, many of the staff members, interact, engage. Because even those that are watching at home, we don't get to engage with that audience. We get to talk to that audience. We are not hearing from them. We are not seeing them. We are not interacting with them on a more personal level. So I think this is just an excellent opportunity to do that. As a district council person and participated in these meetings for 4 years, they became, for me, more and more challenging as to how to keep them interesting, how to keep the community from nodding off. And as much as I love the fact that we did have audience turnout, we did not have substantial audience turnout. And we did, each year, for me, it just saw it decline and decline and decline. It's just hard to keep those things that interesting. So I really applaud staff, and I applaud the city manager for thinking a little out of the box, doing things differently, trying something new. I think it'll be a way to... We've got our council goals. I think this hits about 3 or 4 of them. We can combine it with some other opportunities with the Planning Commission, and I see it as a triple win on all counts. And so I am really excited to get going on this and get planning it. And I think that, quite honestly, yeah, it's not going to be free, but it's Michael's job is to keep it within the money he's got, and if he needs more, he has to come and ask for it. I don't think that's going to happen. So, do you have your marching orders? Do I need to take a vote? Cool. So, Mr. Stallman.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, let me, no, yeah, then we'll adjourn.
No.
No.
I've got another general business item.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Looking at the work product document, the work plan document, which I know isn't public information. It's kind of an internal, and we're not taking it by gospel. But there is an agenda item for the March 13th meeting that was on a prior release that's not on the most recent release, and it has to do with the 2011 fourth quarter and year-end financial report. And if we're moving it away from March 13th because we're concerned about that being too large, I would move it to some general discussion either in the prior
It should be
regular.
on March 6th.
Okay. So it's been moved up. Thank you. I don't want to lose that.
Nope. Moved it up even, because I knew you were on the edge of your seat.
Point of order. Do we go do the exec session motion and then adjourn?
Yes.
Okay, it's been a couple of weeks, I've forgotten. All right, Bruce.
Thank you. I move City Council conduct an executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute Section 24-6-402, Sub 4, Sub F, to discuss personnel issues regarding city attorney and city manager, and pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 24-6-402, Sub 4, Sub B, for a conference with the city attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions regarding state liquor law.
We need a second.
Second.
Okay.
5 votes.
We need 5 votes. Go into exec. Vote is unanimous. We are adjourned.